So, welcome back to chapter 3 of our Epistle of James, where we're going to pick up on that theme that I've raised the first two times. Is the author of James nuts? Because he speaks in such stark declarative terms. Everything's either or. You're either in or you're out. You're good or you're bad. You're rich or you're poor. You're right or you're wrong. There's no middle ground with James. There are just no gray areas. And if you've picked that up in the first 2 weeks, you're definitely going to get it again here in the third session. This is where James really starts talking about the importance of how we speak, how we use our words, the importance of integrity in teaching. So let's just jump right in and pick up chapter 3 with verse 1. James writes, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers and sisters, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For all of us make many mistakes. Anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is perfect, able to keep the whole body in check with a bridle." The fidelity of speech, this is one of the major Jamnian themes. And in the community that James is writing to, there are some indications that there are some powerful, influential people, probably rich, who are teaching a very problematic Christianity, who were teaching a passive Christianity that James was writing to try to correct those who were falsely teaching, as well as to impact the students, the hearers, so that they would understand that what was being taught wasn't really what Jesus had taught. So, picking up with verse 3, if we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we guide their whole bodies. Or look at ships. Though they are so large that it takes strong winds to drive them, yet they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also, the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great exploits. How great a forest is set ablaze by a small fire, and the tongue is a fire. The tongue is placed among our members as a world of iniquity. It stains the whole body, sets on fire the cycle of nature, and is itself set on fire by hell. In many of the communities of the diaspora where the Christianized Jews were moving, they had left home, they'd left family, they'd left property. They were immigrants, they were refugees coming into settled areas where the residents already exercised great power and control. And so there was some really great competition for the power and control in these early Christian communities. And it raises a question for us. It was a question that James was really pushing that I think has a lot of meaning for us today. And that is, how do we assess teachings about Christian discipleship and living? How do we discern the validity of faith claims? So I want to take a few minutes to discuss just a couple of questions. Discuss the power of words and speech to do good, to do harm, to educate, to confuse, to inspire, to discourage. We can do a lot with our words. Talk about that power. And then just share personally, what criteria do you use to determine what to believe and what to reject? Take a few minutes as a group and have some discussion. All right, we'll pick up chapter 3 and verse 7. For every species of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by the human species, but no one can tame the tongue, a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse those who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth comes blessing and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and brackish water? Can a fig tree, my brothers and sisters, yield olives, or a grapevine figs? No more can salt water yield fresh. So James is concerned about this poisonous tongue, is really concerned that some toxic messages are being shared. What does the metaphor of a poisonous tongue mean to us today? Take a few minutes to discuss in our culture, especially in our politics today, what role does integrity and honesty play? And how are words being used today, either to build up or to tear down? Just reflect a little bit on what James is telling us about the power of speech in our own day and our own time. Take a few minutes. And picking up again in verse 13, who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not be boastful and false to the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, and devilish. This is yet another major theme in the context that James is writing to, and that's that righteous wisdom versus earthly wisdom. Those things of God are good and right and holy. Those things of the earth, of the worldly situation, those are evil. Those are bad. James doesn't allow for kind of a gray area in that. So take a few minutes and discuss together, what is wisdom? How is wisdom different from knowledge? How is wisdom different from discernment? How are they related? What is the relationship of wisdom and truth? We'll leave these questions up for just a few minutes and go ahead and have some conversation about these things. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. Now, this is a good place to step in again, and James uses some terms, some of which we find in other places in the New Testament, some that he uses a little differently than some of the other writers. What does it mean to be pure? The Greek word that we translate pure is katharos. Cathartic is a word that comes out of that, and it's all-encompassing and whole. It is bringing to completion. So something that is pure is really complete or perfect, the way we were talking about perfection earlier. Peaceful, philosikos, literally means making new. To be peaceable means that everything is in its natural state. Everything is born brand new. The whole concept is that an infant is good, is born good, hasn't had a chance to be evil. Now, that flies in the face of the concept of original sin that says we're all born into sin, and we need to be redeemed we need to be rescued from that sin. But the idea is that infants are just in their natural state. They haven't had time to learn bias or prejudice. They haven't had time to learn to be selfish. They just are. They're in their natural state. And so things that are peaceable are those things that are the way God intended them to be, the way that God created them. Gentleness, which is eugenes, means from the same source or from the same family. And the way it's used, the way the term gentle is used, is to treat as an infant, to treat as a child, so that we are kind and careful, gentle with a child, to take care of that child and to make sure that child thrives. And then mercy, we think in terms of mercy as giving a person a break, of not condemning, not judging, not punishing. But the word eleos means of one substance or one weave. That mercy means that we make sure there's a place for every thread in the tapestry, that we are woven together in a strong and healthy way. And so mercy makes sure that you stay connected, you stay in the weave, in the fabric of the community, no matter what you do, no matter how you act or how you behave. There's a chance at redemption. We try to keep people in the best way possible. So this is what James is talking about. Now, he also says then that if this wisdom that God is granting us, this pure, peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy, that wisdom produces a harvest of righteousness sown in peace for those who make peace. Take a few minutes and discuss, since we're talking about being peacemakers, and that has been our theme for the whole year, how does this vision, this definition of wisdom, align with the vision for Christian community as peacemakers? Just talk a little bit about your insights into that, and then we'll continue. Just summarizing the main themes we've discussed so far. We've talked about the rich and poor and the difference there. We've talked about the worldly righteousness versus the heavenly righteousness. We've talked about being doers of the word and not hearers only. We've talked about temptation and trials should lead to joy, because they produce in us endurance. And from that endurance, we gain wisdom, we gain experience, and we know then how to live our lives well. These are some of the main themes that we've lifted up in the first 3 weeks. As we close this time and you have a little time to do some more discussion, where do you find agreement, encouragement, and or inspiration in what James is teaching? Where do you struggle? And where do you disagree with what James is saying? And so far as in your own thinking, what do you believe are the most important messages that the author of James is offering to you? What, if anything, has made the greatest impact on you? Go ahead and close this time together, have a little bit more of a discussion, and we will dive into chapter 4 next week. Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in just a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.